Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me for my review of Mobile Suit Gundam Cucuruz Doan's Island. For anyone who doesn't know, this is the new Gundam movie that came out in Japan on June 3rd, 2022, and is based on episode 15 of the original Mobile Suit Gundam. If you're interested in the history of the episode, be sure to check out my review of it on the channel. But on to this movie. So the plot of the movie is pretty similar to that of the episode, but I'll recap it quickly and note a few of the differences later on. There are some spoilers here, but if you're familiar with the plot of the episode the movie is based on, there won't be anything too major. So basically the White Base is assigned to investigate this island with some Zeon remnants, which Bright Noah views as kind of a busy work mission but doesn't let it onto the crew. They go investigate and the Gundam is attacked and defeated by a Zaku. The rest of the White Base crew go back to their base and Omro is taken in by the inhabitants of the island. Basically, Doan was a Zeon pilot who abandoned his post to raise some kids on this island. It's not explicitly stated, but it's heavily implied that he was either directly or indirectly responsible for the death of the kids' families. Omro spends most of the movie getting to know the kids Doan is looking after and helps them survive on the island. Eventually, we find out the island is a secret launch base for some Zeon nuclear missiles, and a battle ensues between Doan's old unit and Doan fighting with the White Base crew. They kill the Zeon, prevent the missiles from exploding, and everyone lives happily ever after. So obviously the point of this episode isn't to further the Universal Century timeline or the Gundam lore. It can't be. We know what happens in episode 14, we know what happens in episode 16, and this can't really contradict that. That being said, this was a fun movie. It reminded me a lot of Yosun Goku Returns, where the movie is more about everyone just kind of having fun and revisiting some of the characters we haven't seen animated in decades, rather than telling a super serious story, though there is a serious story hidden within the hour and 40-minute runtime. Let's start with the positives. Love seeing these characters animated in HD and the updated character and mobile suit designs, precursor to Gundam movie remakes maybe. I also loved how they used this movie to kind of insert hints of later things to come. For example, Bright Noah's displeasure with the EFF and him willing to kind of break the rules to give his superiors trouble in order to help, his people. And even really little things like Sayla subtly exhibiting her new type powers when she says she has a bad feeling about visiting the island. I also loved how they worked in the kind of memeable moments from the original episode. Doan Zaku has a slightly off-model head. He throws some rocks at his enemies when his weapons are destroyed. They include the Zeon reconnaissance planes, and even mostly kept the original ending intact. I also like some of the changes they made to the plot. I liked how they tried to build Doan up as this ace pilot through some conversations among the Zeon soldiers. They even put him on the same level as Char, and being that Doan is really the only person to truly defeat Omro, it seems like that reputation is well deserved. I also like the explanation of why this island is important, specifically that the island is housing these nuclear missiles. It helped explain why Zeon's interested in this random island rather than they're expending resources chasing after one random deserter. On the other hand, I wasn't wild about how the EFF was so interested in this island versus the White Base sort of just randomly happening upon it. You could argue that maybe they knew about the nukes, but they seemed pretty surprised about the launch later on at the end of the movie. Although we don't get any new Bright slaps, they did flash back to the OG one and reanimate it in glorious 4K, or maybe just 1080p up-resed, and we did get a Sayla slap on Slagger. By the way, I love the Slagger-colored Jim. Give me a Robot Spirits of that ASAP. Real marking version, please. And I wouldn't call this next thing a negative necessarily, but expect a lot of filler in the movie. I mean, they took a 20-minute something plot and really stretched it to the limit, and most of that time is character building the various kids and Doan while Omro is living with them. So not a lot of meat on the bone, but it is fun. Char makes a very quick cameo in Omro's Nightmare, and we get some check-ins on what some of the other characters are doing at the time, such as General Revel and Makavi, but no Gyan. And I have an unhappy face in my notes here. Now, there did appear to be a few inconsistencies. I'll give some leeway since there are a few different versions of Gundam, the anime, the movie, Gundam Origin, and the novels, but this movie definitely doesn't quite line up with the anime since, number one, they already have a Jim, and Hayato is not piloting the gun tank. I'm sure there's someone who's probably more versed in all these intricacies, but a few of these things just didn't quite line up for me. And the ending of the episode didn't quite fit the new plot. Clearly the reason they're chasing after Doan was because they wanted to launch the nukes, not because he had the stench of war in him. But I appreciate them keeping in the original ending, for fun, and it's not really a big deal. Also, Omro is a bit brutal at the end of the movie, more so than I would have expected at this point in the plot. I mean, he kills a Zaku with no hesitation, which I guess would be fair at this point, but he also steps on a Zeon pilot and crushes him to death. Seems a little out of character. I also didn't like how Bright was played off more of a comedy character in the early parts of the movie. He has all these really exaggerated responses to the crew slacking off. It's been a while since I watched the OG Gundam, but he always took me as a much more serious character. I did think his character was spot on towards the end of the movie, where he's like pretending the ship is broken so the white base has an excuse to stay and look for Omro before going on to their next assignment. I did not like the CGI mixed in with the animation. For some reason it worked for me when they did it in Unicorn, and it didn't work for me in Origin, and it didn't work for me in this one. Maybe it's because the CGI models don't match the older style character designs. I also thought that the highly detailed mobile suit design looked a little out of place with the more basic character designs. I did like the battle damage on the Gundam and Zaku though. Little things like dents on the shield and missing panels really show the war that these suits have gone through, and not just like being in perfect condition. So all in all, this was a really fun episode. Don't expect it to shatter the Gundam universe, but if you want to revisit the White Base crew one more time and see what all your favorite characters are up to, this is a really fun way to do it. And I certainly wouldn't mind some more of these kind of lighter type adventures of revisiting some of our favorite characters after all these years. I had a few gripes, and the movie probably could have shaved off about 20 minutes or so. But all in all, I'd give this movie a 7.5 out of 10. I would definitely give it a recommend for fans of the original Gundam. Anyway, thanks so much for checking out this episode, and please take a look at my other review of Gundam episode 15 for kind of the full story. And if you like this video, give it a like or subscribe. I do anime reviews on Monday. This season I'm doing a MAME Warrior at the Borderline, and I do figure reviews on Wednesdays and Fridays.